here Sunday nights at 9.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, listening to the reporting from the D.C. press corps, watching them all assemble on Capitol Hill, the excitement, the anticipation, they strike me as like listening and watching to Buffalo Bills fans before Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, and CNN, I don't know, at 3:30 this morning, they were interviewing people who are already in line, waiting to get in, and then as soon as the doors opened, like, the doors just opened. And this is where he's going to be seated. I mean, they set the table, they did the whole,
Yes.
and now, Robert Mueller has arrived at the Capitol, and
they're in for a big disappointment.
What could be a big dud for Democrats and the American people. I mean, he said earlier, a few months ago, that he does not want to talk about this publicly. He's been forced. His hands are tied. Now he has to go. He was supposed to testify last week. Put that off to this week. So I don't know which more we're going to learn, if anything.
I just placed a prop bet getting 2-1 odds that the fly on Jerry Nadler's pants is longer than Chance the Snapper.
Hey-o!
I think I'm going to win that.
That's good.
For more, for a bit of a break, because we're T-minus 20 minutes before Mueller Palooza. Got to add Palooza to everything. Mueller Mania.
That's a hashtag now.
I say it's
courtesy of us. Oh, go to my Twitter. I tweeted out a picture of you and Robert Mueller.
Oh, yeah.
And our countdown clock.
Yeah.
On our incomestore.com.
Right. We've got all the merchandise here.
We do.
Yeah.
Don't
T-shirts
forget,
and mugs.
There is a whole subculture of Americans who are fascinated with Robert Mueller. And they bought the Robert Mueller slippers.
Yeah, they're called House Democrats. I know who they are. All right, for more on, for a switch for now, we'll come back to Mueller in a moment. We got to talk about some serious matters for adults, too, like economics. And to help us do that, we're pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, noted economist, Wall Street Journal columnist, the author of Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy. Steve, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Yeah, I'm all at Twitter. It's like Christmas morning, right? Mueller's coming.
Towel yourself
and
off.
This is probably the biggest non-story of our lifetime, and it just won't go away. And I was just listening to you guys chatting about it, and Amy, I got to tell you, I was doing CNN for the last 2 years, and every single day, every single night, almost 24/7, all they talked about was Mueller, the Mueller report, and Mueller. And, of course, then the report comes out, and it's a big vat of nothing, and they're still, it's just amazing to me, they're still talking about this. I mean, it's unbelievable how obsessed they are with this stuff when we've got real stuff going on, like this terrible budget deal that was consummated this week.
Okay, all right,
what's wrong with it? What do you want to change?
Oh, God. I mean, I'm just disgusted. I wrote a piece for The Hill. If people want to, go to look at it online, basically saying, I rag on the Democrats all the time, and it's easy to do that. But, would it offend you guys if I ragged on the Republicans for a minute?
No.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. These guys have all run, most of them came in 2010 or 2014, hard charging. We're going to get rid of these big spending Obama people. We're going to get limited government. We're going to balance the budget, and, we're going to return the power to the people. And they continue to just pass bigger and bigger and bigger budgets. Now, look, certainly the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi are, partners in this crime. But, folks, you cannot blame this big spending binge we've had for the last 5 or 6 years when we've increased the budget by $1 trillion. Did you know that, by the way? Over the last 5 years, we've increased the budget $1 trillion. And that's been on Republicans' watch. So I'm kind of disgusted by this. And I think that one of the worst things they did is they finally just threw the budget caps out the window.
That's right.
Those were the hard-fought budget caps that we kept back in 2011. That means now there's no ceiling at all on spending. It's Johnny by the door now on how much these guys can spend. And I wish, it just pains me that the White House and the Republicans didn't even put up a fight.
And the cover story that it seems the White House is using that appeared in the Washington Post, of all places, is Trump talking to high-level aides that he wants significant spending cuts identified that he will pursue in a second term. So this is the way. Oh, we can't do it now because you've got
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi in the House. But if you reelect me and if you put Republicans with Kevin McCarthy in charge of the House, that's when we're going to start cutting spending.
Well, look, I mean, I think it's a terrible deal, so I'm not going to defend it. But I will say, something about it in defense of this president, because I love this president, and I think he's done an awesome job in the economy. He's disappointed me on spending. That we're facing one of the most important elections, in our lifetimes in November of 2020, and the White House made a political calculation. They didn't want to go into this election season with a big debt ceiling, fight and a potential government shutdown. And so they've taken that off the table politically, which is probably good for the incumbent president. But boy, did they pay a high price for it. I mean, spending goes up $300-something billion over the next 2 years, above the spending caps. $300 billion? I mean, my God, that's almost as big as the Illinois budget, right?
Right.
And,
Illinois unfunded liabilities, maybe. Yeah.
Exactly. And the problem with Republicans is they keep wanting to spend more and more money on the military. And I'm skeptical of that. I'm not a defense expert, but my God, we spend $800 billion a year on our military, and there's anybody who doesn't think that there's not huge amounts of waste at the Pentagon. I mean, I live a couple miles away from the Pentagon. It's the biggest bloated bureaucracy in the entire world. But for every dollar, the deal has been with the Democrats. Every dollar that Trump gets for additional spending for the military, Pelosi and Schumer and the rest get a dollar of social programs. So you've got this ratcheting up of spending that is now creating $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see. And I want to make one other point, if I may, which is that Democrats line is these deficits are all caused by the tax cut. Actually, over the last 2 years, federal tax revenues in the wake of the tax cut are up almost $200 billion. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a revenue problem. Let's be very clear about this. It's not a revenue problem. It is an overspending problem. Both sides like to play Santa Claus, and at least the Democrats are honest about it.
Yeah,
and
that's the problem. Is look, and this is a problem for Trump, even though he's trying to avoid this fight and the consternation that comes with the debt ceiling and spending. But look, he was sent there to fight. He's sent there to change the culture, to drain the swamp. And this is an instance where he looks very much like the soft Republicans we've watched over the many decades who surrender on one issue as a way to prepare to surrender on the next issue.
It's a good point, Dan. I think this might have been a political miscalculation, because this is all politics, right? I mean, we're getting into the silly season now with everything being all politics. And, I think their political people made a calculation that, people wouldn't mind if the budget goes up by another several $100 billion and you live to fight another day. But I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I think I've just heard so much disgust from conservatives around the country. I mean, people are angry. People are really angry about this budget deal because they feel like, Republicans don't fight. They don't stand up for any kind of principles. They certainly could have gotten a better deal from Pelosi.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
But don't you
they
think
could have
Trump
gotten a
did
better
this
deal. They just didn't want to fight.
Don't you think Trump did this, though, to reassure his election in 2020?
Do I think he did it for the election?
Yeah, just to get reelected,
Yes,
so there's no
yes,
fight.
this was
Their
all
stock
politics.
market's not in flux and all that.
Right, and my point is, I think we'll see, but I think it might be a miscalculation because people just feel like, hey, there's no difference between the Republicans and Democrats, as George Wallace used to say. Remember, there ain't dimes worth the difference between the two parties. Then you get a deflated base, and Trump's strategy all along. I mean, that's what won it in the election in 2016 is to get his base really riled up and get them out to the polls and see the hardcore differences between the two parties. But right now on spending, there isn't much. Now, look. To be fair to the Republicans for a minute, I mean, the Democrats have unveiled a $100 trillion spending, binge that they want to do with the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, and everybody gets higher Social Security benefits, and we're going to relieve all your student loans and all of these things. So, it's Tweedledee versus Tweedledum here.
I wanted to get your reaction to the pronouncement from the Thomas Piketty impersonator running for president, the Democrat Socialist side, Elizabeth
Which
Warren.
one is that? There's so many of them.
I know. I'm going to go with Elizabeth Warren. She's been opining.
I thought you'd say Warren, yeah.
She wrote, warning lights.
By the way, what, Dan, you should stop criticizing. You're not going to have to pay your student loan off.
Yes.
Hooray! It's forgiven.
I've already
It's
paid.
forgiven.
Yeah, you've paid that off.
I've
a
paid
long
my
time
student
ago.
loans off. All right, so here's what she wrote. Warning lights are flashing, whether it's this year or next year. The odds of another economic downturn are high and growing. I see a manufacturing sector in recession. I see a precarious economy built on debt, both household debt and corporate debt, and that is vulnerable to shocks. And I see a number of serious shocks on the horizon that could cause our economy's shaky foundation to crumble. And that's why we need a $15 minimum wage.
Well, first of all, this is wishful thinking by Elizabeth Warren and her colleagues. They are praying for a recession. They're praying for the unemployment rate to go up and people to be thrown out of their jobs so they can get rid of Trump. But look, no, I think the economy is very solid. I do worry about the trade war, as we've talked about many times. Manufacturing has been a little soft, but it's coming back. Every time we get manufacturing on a downturn, it comes back a little bit. We got a good number on jobs for manufacturing a couple of weeks ago, so I don't see it. By the way, boy, this is pretty rich for Elizabeth Warren to say there's too much debt out there. Has anybody seen how much money she wants to spend? I mean, my God, she's got trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of spending she wants. Oh, there's too much debt out there. Look, the fact is, I'm not so sure she's been right about that in terms of household and corporate debt. It is true there's a lot of debt out there, but interest rates are low. It's one thing to borrow a lot of money when you've got 8 to 10% interest rates. It's another to buy a home or start a business by borrowing when you got 2, 3, 4% interest rates. So, I just think factually she's wrong. And by the way, I've got to say this about the student loan forgiveness thing. There's $2 trillion of student loan debt out there, folks. Which, by the way, that's an outrage in its own sense. The fact that universities and colleges are charging so much money. But how in the world? Democrats love to talk about fairness. How is it fair for people who actually did pay off their debts, their student debts? And I know a lot of people, who, including my wife, who worked hard. She wasn't making a lot of money. She did put aside the money to pay her debt, as any good borrower does. And now all of a sudden, the people who didn't pay off their debt are forgiven for it? I mean, that's ridiculous. And that means the people who did pay off their debts have to pay for the debts for people who didn't. I mean, this is just craziness.
All right, he is Steve Moore.
How is that fair, Dan? How is that?
It's
I mean,
not
it's
fair.
fair.
Because I paid off my student loans. I took on a second job to pay
now
off.
you
Blah,
gotta pay for
blah,
somebody else.
blah.
Stephen Moore and I
Cry
both
me a
had
river.
work
Listen, you
permits when we
two.
were 15.
Listen to me,
We have
you
a lot
two.
more in common than you.
Listen.
know.
It's fair if the socialists say it's fair. End of story.
Okay.
Steve
Well,
Moore.
have a good Mueller day, guys.
Yes.